Welcome to Outside the Box, a mental health initiative striving to end the stigma surrounding mental health. Hey, this is Outside the Box, and I'm Janeane, and standing by to join me are Chris and Breann from NAMI OC. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So I love Chris.
Soda.
What did you say? Thanks for saying that.
Yeah, so Jinx, she owes me a soda.
We said at the same time.
We finished each other's sandwiches.
So what's great is, Chris, I met you at the UCI. It was like a student wellness event.
Yeah, it was the what was it? Mental wellness fair?
Mm-hmm.
Like that, yeah.
And thanks for having me on your podcast as well. Anxiety Sucks, which it does.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it does.
Really does.
Did you guys come up with that name?
Mm-hmm. Our initial name was NAMI OC Declassified Anxiety Survival Guide, which was kind of just a mouthful.
That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful, and it was kind of a spin-off of there was a show called Ned's Declassified.
Ned's Declassified.
Yeah, and it was like this old Nickelodeon show, but then it was just so like long to say every single time that I had to shorten it. So we went just to Anxiety Sucks, and I just came up with it.
Yeah, right to the point.
It was like right to the point. It just is not great.
Yeah. How did you both get involved working at NAMI? And could you talk about like your title and your role, what you do? Maybe we'll start with Breann.
Okay, yeah. So how I got involved with NAMI is my mom has been working there, for like maybe 10 years now. So for a good chunk of my childhood, she's been working there. So I've always been known about it. I've always been around. I've been to the walks. I've been to many events. She started out as like the event coordinator, and now she's doing big and grand things now. So that's how I like always known about it. And then kind of just through college, I really needed a job, and she was like, you can start off as a peer mentor for our face-to-face program, which basically was just a COVID connection program to like kind of connect people if they were struggling. Then you could, chat with some people. They would just mentor you, give you resources. So that's kind of what I started out doing. And then I kind of gotten more involved with our teen and young adult program. And that's kind of where I'm at now. And that's why now I'm the podcast coordinator and manager of the teen and young adult program. I guess that's what it's called, right, Chris? Teen and young adult.
Yeah. Yeah. I also heard it's called teen adjustable youth or teen something like that.
It's like transitional
age youth. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we get our TAY little, I guess, acronym from that. So I've been doing this for about 2 years now, and it started off as the first title, and then we switched it this season to Anxiety Sucks.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris?
Mine's an interesting story. So I actually
the Breann's is not interesting.
Yeah. What?
Yeah, hot take.
I'm joking.
Yeah. So I used to manage a restaurant in Fullerton called Consab. And the owner of that restaurant, her dad is the president of NAMI, and her son was in NAMI. And I didn't know for like the longest time, I think like a year. And then there was a point where this was like during the pandemic, I was like heavy in my addiction. I was an alcoholic, and then I had a suicide attempt. And that was kind of my aha moment when I started recovering my mental health and quitting my addictions and just really working on myself. And around like a month after that, that's when I found out that she was involved with NAMI. And I bugged her for like an entire year. I was like, take me away from here. I want to go to NAMI. I'm passionate about it. And we were short staffed. She's like, absolutely not. Like, I need you. Like, we don't have anybody else. Da, 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 da. And then after a year of pestering her, she was like, okay, I'll get you an interview. I was actually supposed to be her personal assistant. And then I had a Zoom interview where I met Breann's mom, and she really liked me for another position. And so she kind of stole me from my friend and put me as a program coordinator doing family to family, peer to peer, basics class. things like that. And then I kind of got poached for the college program coordinator, and I love it. And I'm so happy doing it. And I get to work with students and go to different colleges and universities. Doing this podcast is probably one of my, well, not my favorite thing, because there are so many facets of the job that I love, but definitely this is up there.
Yeah.
For sure.
What
Yeah, and that's kind of how I got started.
what an ideal situation for both of you to keep your mental health in check and do something that gets you up in the morning that's so purpose driven that it's helping you, but knowing what you're doing for today's youth. I mean, there's so much data, as you know, about, the mental health of youth, and we're in a mental health pandemic, and you just probably bring them such joy where maybe they don't even have someone to talk to.
Yeah, that's kind of where I kind of fell in love with it, because I started out as the face-to-face coordinator, and it was just so like inspiring, and also just like I learned so much from learning these people's stories that it really, I don't know, that's when I really like, fell in love with this job. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, sometimes you don't even really think about it. You're wrapped up in what you're doing, and it's your job, and you have tasks and deadlines and things to get done, and then you have those little moments to where you realize, like, oh crap, like I'm actually like helping someone. So it's
Right.
definitely, it's really cool, and we get those like little reminders. But I think doing the podcast is like one of those things that we can kind of meet them where they're at, and beyond, do something that they actually are currently doing and enjoy. Like I'm a huge podcast listener. Like I listen to podcasts all the time, and a lot of my friends do, and I know that there's a lot of like teens and young adults that listen to podcasts as well. So I think that this is reaching a wider audience, and we're able to kind of spread our resources and be advocates, and just have fun.
Yeah. Chris, when you're speaking to college students, let's say, do you ever look at someone and think, wow, I kind of see myself in that person, and this is what I would say to that person if
Every
that
time.
was me, at that age?
Yeah, every time. There's always at least one person in the class that I really, I see as a younger version of myself. Whether it's their story, if they tell me about it, or just their body language. I can definitely see myself, in them. And so like that's what I really enjoy about it too, is that, if I would have had one of these presentations at my school, or if I would have had this experience, when I was that age, I felt like it would have made a huge difference. So it kind of feels cool to be that person. And I never would have imagined that I would be that person. Like I still don't really believe it. If you would have seen me a few years ago, you'd have been like, whoa. And so, it's just funny how life works.
Was it interesting to see how here you were in the pandemic going through this really awful period of time, and now here you are 2023, and I experienced my own numbing behaviors growing up. It took me the longest time because I grew up with a parent that was like, hey, here's some alcohol at 9 years old, or here's some weed at 14. Like, you think that's totally fine to be doing these things.
Yeah, if you're going to drink, I'd rather have you do it at my house.
See? Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
That kind of thing, right? So now that you're not in that place, like you're feeling all the feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was definitely rough when I did get sober. Because there's a couple things that happen when you're an addict, especially an alcoholic. It's kind of like a different breed. Is that when you're sleeping, you're not dreaming. You're not getting full rest. No REM. So you're not dreaming. So what your brain has to dream. It has to go through those motions. So you dream during the day, and that's how you get delusion. And so when you see an alcoholic or an addict, and it's the daytime, and I don't know another way to say it, but it looks like they're really going, they're on a different level. It's that delusion. And so that's one of the things that went away that really changed how I saw life. And once I stopped, giving into my addictions and taking care of myself, I realized that, investing in myself is really important to how I perceive everything.
Yeah.
And I'm able to have control of my brain and, control my emotions. And instead of, when me being sad, I would turn to, drugs and alcohol, which, might make me feel nothing. That doesn't necessarily make it go away, right? That just
Right.
kind of, it teaches you to not feel. So you don't really feel those. So when I did get sober, all of a sudden I was feeling everything,
Yeah.
and it's great. It's great to feel everything. And I never
Right.
appreciated that before. So,
Yeah.
It took me a few months, almost a year actually, to kind of feel like my older self.
Mm-hmm.
And it's truly rewarding. Yeah, it feels great.
Amazing. And Breann, you're a student right now on the East Coast.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So here you are working for NAMI, and you're probably seeing or hearing students that are struggling. I'm not asking you to share anything personally you've heard, but it must be amazing to have this foundation. It's almost like this support system when being a college student right now is really hard.
Yeah. I don't know, like, especially because I moved so far. I mean, I grew up in California and then I moved all the way to New York, and just like learning to live in New York is really challenging, and it really makes you grow up really, really, really fast.
Yeah.
And I wasn't like not, I was really not expecting that at all when I first moved there. And so I would like call my mom and I was like, oh my God, like I like need to go home. Like I hated it. I truly, truly hated it my first year. And it was also because COVID happened, and that was like took a whole toll on
Of
my
course.
college, like my first year of college and stuff, that I wanted to move back home. And my mom was like, no, you really, like, you should really give it another chance. I think you're going to be wrong about this. And I'm really happy I listened to her, because I am so happy that I moved there. But it's like every day you see like just people like on the streets, or you just see all this stuff, and friends too, and they struggle with anxiety and
Mm-hmm.
like depression and stuff. And it is nice to like know like how to like kind of handle those situations, because I think if I didn't like have this job, I don't know if I would know how to do that.
Right.
So that is really like helpful and awesome. But yeah, like students right now are just in all aspects, I think, are just struggling. And I think
Yeah.
it's really sad, because they're just so stressed out about trying to finish school, and they're so stressed out about like what's next. And like that's kind of where I'm at right now, is I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know what's next. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's super interesting, but it is nice to have this like support system. And it's also very helpful to like have the reminder to like take time for yourself and have self-care. And I think
Right.
that's really what this job has also taught me a lot. It's like self-care is so, 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 so important.
That's great. I know, because as a student, you might be focused on your GPA and those AP tests you got to study for, and I got to get in a good school, and then you don't get in a good school, and like your mental health goes down the toilet because that's all you focused on. And I always say, like, mental health is the most important thing above everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what your
100%.
GPA is. You can have a 4.6, but you can also go out
Yeah.
in life and flop because of
Yeah.
yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
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 And seeing like just the school stress on like even high school students too, like that whole moment when you're like trying to apply for colleges and all that, like that is so stressful. And then the most annoying question ever to get asked is like, oh, like where do you want to go to school, or where you're applying? And you're just like, don't talk to me about it, because it's just
Yeah.
so like frustrating. And now you get the question of like, what are you doing after college? And you're like, I don't know, like please stop asking me this.
No
So
idea.
but yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like it's a constant like stress that you don't even really like think about until like I think you're out of it really. And then you like
Yeah.
look back and you're like, why was that like, yeah, it's just
Right.
odd.
I feel that there are so many societal milestones and steps that people are expected to check the boxes. What did you get on your SATs? What did you get on your APs? Did you do this, that, and the other thing? And I think the whole mindset has to change as far as happiness, what happiness means, and not living other people's expectations. And
Yeah.
because that might not be what you want to do. You might not want to get married, and you might not want to go to college right away, or do whatever, and you have to really find your own path.
Yeah. I think like, especially like where I grew up, it was so just expected to like go to a 4-year school after high school that it definitely took a toll on some of my friends too, because they were just like, I don't want to do this. Like, this is not something that's set for me. And it's like nice to have a reminder that like, I mean, there should be a reminder that like you don't have to follow like go to high school, go to college. Like if you need to take a year off, like that's okay. It's gonna be like everything's gonna work out in the end.
Yeah, because like, for instance, Chris, you might have friends that, you know, graduated college and they have all these student loans and they're drinking to mask all their emotions and they're so stressed, but they have this title and this job, and it's like, for what?
Yeah, no, yeah, for what? And you know, I never followed that the societal norms. And I didn't get a very good running start, you know, and jump off to start that. So I just never did it. So I have experienced what it's like not being a part of any social norms. Um, you know, especially, you know, when it comes to, you know, marriage and stuff like that, like being, you know, a gay man, that was never an issue for me until, you know, the bill got passed that, you know, gays can get married. I remember when I found out, I was on a plane and I was in a serious relationship, and I remember thinking like, oh crap, dang it. Now I lost my excuse.
Oh, funny.
Not getting married.
That is so funny.
Yeah, but you know, I went to art school, and you know, we talked about this on our podcast. I dropped out the first semester. My tuition for the art school that, you know, now currently no longer exists, was $100,000. So I dropped out after a semester, and I owed 27 to 32,000, and I just paid it off 2 years ago. And I'm 33 now, and I dropped out in 2009.
Okay, so imagine if you had finished, and then people are like, "So where'd you go to school, Chris?" And you're like, "Oh, blah."
My school doesn't exist.
Yeah, my school, but I'm paying for it. I mean,
yeah,
what?
which would be like a, you know, a cool limerick, but you know, at the same time, that would have taken all my hard work and my, you know, possibly um my degree, you know, that might have not been useful after that, you know, because no one's going to respect that you went to that school, because that, you know, that school got in big trouble. So, you know, now that when you put it that way, it's a huge blessing. And, you know, I don't regret any decisions that I've made, bad or good, because they've made me the person that I am today. And, you know, you have to make bad decisions in order to appreciate the good ones that you've made, you know, and you have to go through really bad experiences to appreciate when you have good experiences. So yeah, I think it was the right decision.
And there's so much to learn from all those bad decisions, and you can really, you can't avoid it. You can't run away from it. You have to say, okay, what can I do? And I'm just going to pivot or learn from this and do something else. And, you know, and both of you could be anywhere having a conversation on a podcast with someone, and it's the unexpected moments that could open a new door for you or a new way of thinking. And that's what life is.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And, you know, now I take the failures as a learning experience. You know, I don't want to say that I have no fear. But when it comes to failing, I don't, because I've, you know, failed so much in my life, and, you know, we can all relate to failure. But I think there was that point to where, you know, when I had that suicide attempt and I was in the hospital and I was close to death and I hit my rock bottom, that I kind of lost that fear of failure. And, you know, when you're on the verge of dying, you know, there's nowhere to go but up.
Yeah.
So I think just waking up every day, I have like a new appreciation for life. And so if something doesn't work out, it's like, okay, that's fine. You know, I'm still alive, and I can, you know, something new will happen tomorrow, or something new will happen in an hour, you know, doors closed so that others can open.
And maybe, I was going to say, maybe you got to look at it as that's not the end of the world, and that didn't happen for a reason, and that's okay. And what's next?
Yeah. And if you're trying to achieve something, and it doesn't work out, you can be content in knowing that you tried, that you did it. and that, if you hadn't done it, you would have always wondered, what if you did do it, it didn't work out, what can I do now? There's something like super freeing about having that kind of mindset.
I also just want to say that, like, Chris says this a lot on our podcast too, of just like failure is just basically an opportunity for growth. And I think it is such like the nicest reminder for me, like in this phase of my life that I'm in right now, of like that even if I do maybe make a bad decision or fail in some type of way, that it's just nice to know that like there's other ways that your life can turn out.
Right.
So thank you, Chris.
Yeah, of course. I'm the beacon of failure. It's happened so much that you kind of just you become numb to it. I can relate to what Breann is going through because, being in your 20s is so hard. And I don't care what anyone says. This is what I believe. It is the hardest time in your life. You go from a teenager, you're, living under your parents' roof. You're being told to go, to this place every single day, which is high school. You have someone always watching your back and, helping you along making decisions. And then, when you're graduating college, it's this huge fear of being like, wow, I'm going to have to like keep myself alive and keep these things going. And I have to do taxes and I have to pay bills and, all of these things. And it's so fearful. Yeah. It will be hard. It will be tough and it will be hard. But it's, it's training for your 30s and I love my 30s. My 30s are just, you're just wiser, you're cooler. You've gone through all these experiences. Anytime my friends, they're 29 and they're like, I'm going to be 30, and they're like all sad about it. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like when I went, like 30 is so awesome. So there's so much to look forward to.
Definitely.
At this point.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to be my 50s.
Why is that?
50s are going to be so sick.
Why?
I don't know. Like I hear so many good things about being in your 50s. I know 50-year-olds and they're just like, so it's like 30s times 2, where, if they don't want to do something, they're not going to do it,
Wait a minute, 30 times
like
2 is 60. So
no, but like 30 squared.
I'm joking.
I guess that's still yeah. I didn't go to school.
I'm not a math major, but yeah.
I'm not a mathematician. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
well, you don't fear aging.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what you're saying.
I don't fear aging. No, yeah. I do fear like being a vegetable, like getting old and like not being able to take care of myself. Like my grandparents are going through that right now. And it's tough to see. And I'm kind of like, they'll call me and they'll be like, hey, like, your aunts want to, put us in an old folks home. And I'm just their huge advocate because when you get old, you want to die in your home. You want to die around all of your things.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about rich old folks homes that, I don't know. It just kind of makes me sad.
Sure. No, I don't blame you.
If it were me, I don't want to be in that. If I can't take care of myself, then it's time for me to go. And I want to be in my home with all of my things and pictures of my family, like, get off me. That's kind of how I see it. So,
you got a long way to go.
That's that's what I fear. But that's so long to go.
Yeah.
Probably another like 10 years.
Yeah. I want to ask, I'll start with Breann, but I was saying earlier how we're in a mental health pandemic and COVID exacerbated the pre-existing mental health crisis. And with all the work you're doing with today's youth, what's maybe some things that you would suggest, like how we're going to actually get out of this? Because I see it as a societal thing. It's embedded in education and mindsets. And I guess on an individual level, like what would you tell students who are really struggling? You probably would ask them, Breann, like, what do you do for self-care? And it's not fluff. It's not like, oh, do a face mask, you'll feel better.
Yeah.
But what would you say to somebody that's really struggling,
That's a good question. I think that even though it's like, like don't, do a face mask and you'll feel better. Like you may not want to say that, but I do think that the importance of like taking time for yourself and just like I guess for students especially, like, if I could tell everyone, and this is a lot easier said than done, but, like, to just tell people not to be so stressed out about an assignment or a paper or a test, like,
Yeah.
that's coming up, um, because it's really, like, not worth it. Like, it is, like, any test that I took in high school that I was stressed over, I have no recollection of it anymore. Like, all of that information is gone. Like, why was I even so stressed about it?
Yeah.
So if I could, like, tell, like, a high school student or even a college student, like, it really is gonna all, like, work out in the end, and, like, it's all gonna be okay, um, is something that I would tell someone. But just, like, I guess the effects of, like, COVID and, like, mental health, I think, and I know that this is also this is just my beliefs because I kind of personally hate, like, phones and, like, social media, even though I am also kind of a hypocrite for saying that because I do use it. I think that, like, taking time away from your phone and taking time away from, like, seeing people on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, whatever it is, I think is really beneficial to someone's mental health. And I think,
Yes.
like, not being, like, so involved into your phone at all times will make you feel better, like, immediately.
That
So
was my next question, what you thought about the phones, because it takes you away from taking a walk, being fully
Mhm.
present with your friends, getting sleep at night.
Yeah.
Psychologically, you're like, they didn't like my picture, or they liked my picture,
Yeah.
or no one likes anything. You know, it's
Yeah.
so stressful.
It's so stressful, and, like, I my friend actually, like, just texted me, and she was like, "I wanna post these photos," and she's like, "What should the caption be?" And I was like, "Oh my god, I don't know, like, whatever you want it to be." And it's just like she's like, "This is so stressful." I'm like, it shouldn't even be stressful in the first place, but it is. And, like, now that it's someone's, like, also full-time job, I couldn't even imagine, like, that is really stressful. And I know a lot of people say, like, "Oh, being an influencer seems so easy," but I personally think it's probably really difficult because you're so like, you're basically just, like, setting yourself up to, like, listen to what people have to say about you, and that is not a nice thing,
Not
I don't
healthy.
think.
Right.
Not
Right.
healthy at all.
Yeah. I always say that if you want to feel better, one of the ways you can do that is to go help somebody else. And we talked about this in my
Mhm.
show. It's like, go volunteer somewhere, go work in a food bank, go pick up excess food, go drop it at Mary's
Yeah.
Kitchen in Orange, wherever they're located now. Do something for someone else and gain perspective,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, 100%. I
Yeah.
think that also just, like, not that it, like, I don't think it means that you're, like, a better person for
No.
doing that, but if you do something like that, like, yeah, you're totally right. Like, you will feel better about your own self, and that you're actually doing some, like, good for this world instead of just, like, sitting on your phone and watching a TikTok or something like that. So,
Yeah.
and there's benefits to technology, I think, and there's benefits to social media for sure, but I now think that it's kind of going to the direction that it is doing more bad than good.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think we need to connect on a human level. Like, don't be hesitant to talk
Yeah.
to a stranger. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, be careful, but I'm just saying, be open. Like, I think people forgot how
Mhm.
to smile because we're all wearing masks. So when I'm taking a walk, I'm like,
Yeah.
hello, hi. And some people don't even look up, but be
Yeah.
open to the possibilities to connect.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like
100%.
I have conversations with people all the time. Like, I'm not one of those people that will just walk up to someone and be like, but like I had a conversation with this woman at Sprouts about like different kinds of milk.
See?
Yeah, it was like the dumbest conversation, but it made me feel good. It was just like, like we walked away and I was like, bye, have a good day. It's just like those little interactions,
Yes. Now, why
and
did it make you feel good?
why did it make me feel good? It was
Yeah.
just human connection.
Right.
That
Mhm.
just did something in my brain. Neurons fired, endorphins spewed, it was
Yes.
just something like it made me feel good. And that's
Yes.
one of the things that you don't get with social media. You get that little serotonin boost.
Yeah.
But it's not really real. You don't know these people.
Right.
Like if you
Yeah.
were to die, would your followers go to your funeral? No, absolutely not.
No,
It's good to have like work on, your personal friendships.
I
And
agree.
I just like Breann, I'm a little bit of a hypocrite. Like I do not like social media, but I do go on it.
Hmm.
And I post and I'm pretty active on it. But when you go and go to like West Hollywood and if I'm at like I was at a party with like influencers, and it looked like a bunch of like, lizard people walking around, and it was they acted different. It was like they were either always camera ready, makeup on, like smiling in a weird
Like very
way,
plastic, like very
for
superficial.
pictures. Yeah, very plastic.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's odd, and to see that, I'm like, oh, and I just follow some of these people, and it's not how they are on Instagram.
Mhm.
In real life, it's very, they're very shiny, and they're
Wow.
very, like stand up straight, and which is good for you. Don't get me wrong, but it's I slouch, but it was just weird.
That's a lot of
The
pressure. Like if you really look at
Yeah.
them and
Mhm,
you're like,
100%.
I'm like, look at all that pressure that you're putting on yourself to live that fake
Hmm.
existence. That's not you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
I will tell you this, that I posted a picture yesterday with a friend of mine and tagged him in it. And he DM'd me on Instagram and texted my personal phone, like, "Hey, can you take that down so I could edit it, and then you could repost it?" Yeah,
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah.
he's like somewhat of an influencer, so I was just kind of like, and he was telling me why he wanted to edit it, and he was like really insecure about something, and I was like, I didn't see it,
Mhm. If you didn't
like I
see
was
it,
like,
no
what are
one
you
Yeah.
else is
talking
going to see
about?
it.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
true.
nobody really cares about you. Like nobody, like, you think that you walk in a room and everyone's analyzing you, and they are, but not to the degree that you think they are.
Right.
Nobody really cares about you that much. Everyone's really just kind of, thinking about themselves,
Or worried
for the
about
most
themselves,
part,
like
or
how
worried about
insecure
what
they
they look
feel.
like, or worried about
Exactly.
what they, it's just a
Yeah.
bunch of people, just worrying about what they look like, all in a room together. No one's thinking about you in that
Yeah.
way. No one's going to notice, that, that pimple on your nose that, you've tried for hours to cover up, and you're really self-conscious about, and you don't want to be in any selfies or pictures because of it. Like no one's looking at that. No
Yes.
one's, you know.
Yeah. Also, just like the thing about just human connection, like you having a conversation with someone about milk and
Mhm.
sprouts. Um, it's like anytime I talk to someone on the street or like in the elevator or something like that, I always go home to my roommates and I always tell them about it because it's so shocking to me that someone random just like talk to me, and it's like, and it's usually some random conversation about something stupid, or like it's, if it's in the elevator it's usually about like their dog, because there's always like dogs in my elevator. That's super cute. But I always tell my roommates about it when I have like this random connection or this random conversation with someone. And I think that like most people do that because I think there's like such a lack of like human connection that people forget that like humans can actually speak to one another, and like it can affect your day in a good way or a bad way. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's nice because like if you go into a grocery store or you go into a public place and you look around, everybody is there to consume something,
Yeah.
you know? Like so it's a little bit dehumanizing that we're all not talking with each other, and we're all not like connecting, like if you're eating lunch, be like, "Oh my God, I'm eating lunch." Like what? Like we don't talk to each other often enough, I feel like. And so it's cool when you
Absolutely.
have those little connections,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
there's no bias. You don't know this person. They could be a serial killer, or they could be the president, of North Carolina. Like you have
Mhm.
no idea like who this person is, but you still have this little connection with them, and you might
Yes.
remember it, you might forget it, but it happened, and for some reason it makes you feel connected to something,
Yeah.
and it's nice. Yeah.
There was an article in the newspaper about a year and a half ago about Chapman University, and this woman,
Mm.
uh, a professor, teaches dance, and she decided to have her students reenact the lives of retirees. So they went to this retirement home, and some of the retirees would talk about how they survived the war, they lost someone, they experience different things. And so the student and this retiree would figure out what the student would reenact in dance. And it was a really powerful, emotional dance at times. But what it did was it bridged 2 generations. I call it the grandparent effect. So some of these students might not have grandparents, or they might never talk to someone who's in their 80s, right? And so you get like this special moment to connect with somebody that could potentially teach you something, and you teach them something, and you're laughing and you're having this human moment. Like, people don't do that enough.
No, I agree. They do not do that enough.
Yeah.
And I
And I
think
love
like,
our elders.
yeah,
Like
me too.
they're
I
my
was just gonna
favorite
say,
people besides
yeah,
dogs.
yeah. I mean, so many of my friends are always like, "Oh, I wish I was just like an old person." And like one of my roommates, we call him like grandpa because he kind of acts like a little grandpa sometimes, and he can't like see and he can't hear. So it's like, "Oh, you're grandpa," but it's just funny. And then like I love like calling my grandparents, and I don't know. It's just like elders are so fun. There is
Yeah,
like a
like
lack of connection between the 2 generations for sure.
yeah,
Yes.
totally. And it's like it's a shame. Like, I watched a video where an elder was talking and they were saying how they get overlooked so often.
That's right. And
You
it's
know,
depressing
that
for them. Very
yeah, and
depressing.
I'm just like my grandparents like are like the coolest people that I know, and not just because they're my grandparents, like the stories that my grandpa has,
Yeah. The
like from the
stories.
50s was like
Stories.
if he would have got caught doing any of those things now, like he would be in prison for
Mm-hmm.
years. And he didn't do anything. He didn't like hurt anyone. But
Yeah.
there's so many things that I'm just like, wow, he's lived through so much. And he is the funniest person that I have ever met in my life. And I'm his first grandchild. So we have like a really, really close relationship. And we call each other and talk to each other all the time.
Amazing.
And he's going through like Parkinson's, and he's getting up there in age, and his mind is starting to go a little bit, or at least so everyone thinks.
Mm-hmm.
And he my mom will call me like, oh, he's not doing too well, he's da, 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 da. And then he'll call me and he seems totally fine. Like
Really?
he's so with it.
Yeah.
And like we'll be at family gatherings, and I swear he plays it off. I think he's so tired of like the bickering and stuff in
Yes.
our
Sure.
family.
Yeah.
We have a lot of loud personalities, and he just he doesn't want to be part of it. And
Yeah.
he has like a somewhat disdain for our family. Like he loves them, but they annoy him. So I feel he plays it off.
I
And I
probably would
swear, like
too.
he'll say, like he'll do like, wait, what's her name? What's her name? And they'll be
Mhm.
like, Grandpa, like I'm Tiana, da, 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 and then he'll look at me and go, and he'll wink.
This
So
is
I
like a movie,
swear.
Chris.
So like, but you
Yeah.
get to that point where nobody questions you because you're
Right.
you're of that age. And I
Yes.
can't wait to get to that point.
Yes.
Because if I don't want to like talk to someone, I'll just play it
Yeah.
off like I'm losing it,
I'm going
which
to
is
tell you, I'm
probably
going
really bad to say out loud. Because I'm sure that if your grandparents are going through it, they're probably not lying to you.
that's so
But
funny.
I think it's really funny. My grandpa, that's just his personality.
When
He's
my
just
grandmother was
always.
alive, I was really close to my grandmother,
Mhm,
more closer than my
mhm,
mother. I'd go visit her
yeah.
in Florida, and she would ride the elevator, and
Mhm.
she thought this woman on the elevator was hard of hearing, and she would make fun of her name, like a swear word. The woman's name was Mrs. Farkas. So I'll let you figure out what my grandmother would say.
Fart kiss.
Mrs. Farkas. And so I actually wrote a screenplay because it was too funny, all the things my grandmother would do. And she'd whisper in my ear, her real name is Mrs. Bleep. And I'd be like, Grandma, stop it, so you might hear you. And it turns out, I think the woman did hear her. She's getting off the elevator, and she just like shot my grandmother a look.
That's so funny.
That's
Yeah, I
hilarious.
mean,
That's what I
my
love. That's
mhm,
what I love
Exactly.
about
yeah,
them. I mean, they've lived through so much. It's like they stopped caring about the things that don't matter as much.
mhm,
Yeah.
But it really upsets them when they get overlooked, or when
Yeah. It's
yeah,
that's like the
depressing.
one thing, is that it sucks to feel like you don't exist around people.
And you don't matter.
So I think that's
Yeah.
really one
yeah.
thing, or that, yeah, they don't matter. I think that's
Yeah.
really one thing that is affecting our elders. is that young people just tend to like overlook them and not respect them as much as they should.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
they live through so much and you can learn so much from them. And yeah, they're from a different generation. You may
Doesn't
not
matter.
agree with their
Yeah.
viewpoints now,
Yeah.
but they've been on this earth for so long and they've seen, if you really want to look at it, they've seen the worst.
Right. Right.
So they have so much knowledge to offer you.
So there's a term, it's called human capital.
Mm.
And that's what they are. They're human capital. They're untapped human capital because we don't value them. We don't take the time, not everybody, but people don't take the time to really listen and get to know them because they are so wise. I learned that phrase because I got a fellowship through Columbia Journalism, what's called the Age Boom Academy. It was the coolest thing. And there was a lot of discussion and articles about how older generations are very depressed because they're kind of put aside for safety because of COVID, but they're really isolated and no one's taking the time to be with them.
Yeah. I like, okay, so my grandparents, they have a house in Vermont, and they've always like wanted me to go to Vermont, but because of COVID, it was just like very difficult for me to like get up there just from New York. So I finally went over like during the fall, this past fall. And it, first of all, like Vermont in the fall is beautiful. I don't know why I never decided to go beforehand, but
Is that
it was
Canada?
like, it's right under Canada. Like, right. Yeah. And I went, and my grandparents were like, they literally had never been so happy to see me. And it's not like that. I mean, they're always happy to see me, but it was just because like I took a weekend out of like, my life, and I went up and I went to go see them, and we had such a blast, and it was such a like a good weekend. And my grandma always, she's like, when we go back, because they live in Florida too, they like split their year. So like when we come back to Vermont, like you have to come visit us, take the train. Like she's like, it was so much fun like having you. We like canned salsa, and it was like the best salsa I've ever had, and it was just so much fun. But my grandpa, he's like the funniest guy I've ever known. Like he's just hilarious. And we always joke with him, and there was this like one person at my sister's wedding that my roommate was like dancing with, and so every time I call him, he was like, is your roommate still talking to that guy? And I'm like, no, they just met that night. Like that's never happened. Like nothing really came about that. But it's just so funny. He just remembers that one moment. And I love my grandparents.
Well, I'm sure they love seeing you in person. Yeah. Imagine if NAMI sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like now I kind of say I'm like the favorite grandchild just because I like went to go see them, because my siblings don't really get to see them that often. But that's just
you have to make the effort. It's good for you. It's good for them. Imagine if NAMI OC did something to connect students and retirees.
That would be a really good.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah,
that would be really fun. Like have like
that would be fun.
Like a big brother, big sister, but like a grandpa or grandma.
But
exactly.
Have them come to your school, and
yeah,
I think that would be really cool.
I mean, I think also just for like students and like kids, like they just like get so busy with like their just everyday to-do list that they just like forget to talk to their grandparents. And it's like sad that happens, but it's just kind of, they're just like not the priority, because it's not like a parent, like a direct relative that you like need to like constantly be in contact with. So, but like everyone enjoys talking to their grandparents. It's just like you have to like take the time to do it. And like some people just like can't find the time. But if there was like a program, that would be really like a fun thing to do.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it would probably bring them closer to their grandparents.
Oh, definitely.
Like they'll be like, oh my gosh, like I need to call my grandparents. Like I feel like I'm gonna call my grandpa after this.
Oh, I know. When you think about the amount of time people spend creating TikToks or on TikTok or any social media or on your phone, you have time.
People you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether you pick up the phone, you FaceTime, you Zoom to connect with your grandparents, definitely.
Yeah. Or do a TikTok with your grandparents.
Yeah. I've seen people do that.
Bring them on in. Bring them in the new business. Cut them a percentage,
Exactly.
Show them some love. You're here because of them. That must be so cool to like be a grandparent and like be at the end of the table. If you have like the big family dinner and you just see all these people and you're just like, I made them. You know what I mean? That's gotta be like a really cool. Yeah.
That'll be you.
Well, oh my gosh. I gotta get the adoption first. I'm not gonna do that till I'm 50.
That's okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna be an old parent.
That's okay.
There you go.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And adopting is good.
Adopting is good.
Anything else
great.
you'd like to leave us with about NAMI OC, or drop your website? Anything else, events coming up?
I know Chris has some events.
Yeah, I do have some events. Yeah, so on the Monday the 24th, I have what we call an honest hour. So it's an hour of, we kind of talk about something real. And what we're doing is I'm having two panelists on speaking about transgender and mental health. So I have two panelists that are identified as trans. They're both have like a unique experience. Even with everything that I feel like I've been through is, almost nothing. It's pale in comparison to what they've gone. So I've very much captivated by their journeys. And I'm really excited to have this. It's a webinar, and to have them talk about it, and we'll be having community questions and things like that. And I'll be asking questions and interviewing them, and they'll be able to give us a little bit of insight. So that's going to happen, on the 24th, and you could register for that for Eventbrite.
I just want to blurb out there. I do know I have spoken to one of the panelists for this honest hour, and her story is absolutely astonishing. It is so so amazing. She's awesome. So
April 24th.
Yeah, and I'm a really curious person. So for me, this is, I'll get to ask all the questions that I've been dying to ask, and anybody who is attending can also type in the chat and ask questions that they want to ask, as long as they're respectful. But yeah, so it's going to be really great. And then we have the silent disco event that I'm putting together. It's my first big in-person event. I've invited Janeane to come and set up a booth and do some exercises and take submissions for comic strips and talk about have her whatever she wants to bring, her book, which I'm very excited about, by the way. I can't wait till that drops. I did get a little copy of it, but haven't read it yet. When I get some time this weekend, pop it open. Okay. But yeah, so that's going to be on May 12th. There's going to be 3 DJs. We're going to have 100 plus wireless headphones with 3 channels on them. So each DJ is going to have their own dedicated channel. So if you're, having a little bit of music ADD, or you're not feeling one, you could switch to another one. It's going to be Y2K themed. So it's like house music, hip hop, EDM with early 2000s sampled in the mix. And we're going to have snacks and water and outside organizations sharing resources. And I put a lot of time and effort into this location, and it's going to be really nice.
Nice.
I'm really excited about it. Yeah.
All right. So NAMIOC.org.
NAMIOC.org. Right.
Okay, cool. And you're on
those. And you can go to our Eventbrites from the website. So if you see, we have our calendar of events on the website, it'll take you to our Eventbrite. So for registering for the silent disco and the honest hour, and yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you both. This has been amazing.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for checking out this week's episode of Outside the Box. We're spreading knowledge and compassion through podcasts, social events, and resources. Outside the Box is committed to facilitating real conversations about real issues that people struggle with every day. I hope my movement will not only inspire you to seek the help you need, but also help you learn the importance of self-awareness, mindfulness, and self-compassion. Want to be a guest on Outside the Box? Drop us an email at info@otbseries.com. We drop a new episode every Thursday, and you can check out our socials at OTB Series. For more information, visit otbseries.com.